Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amber and this is Funny Free. Today I have a super special guest, a blast from my own personal past, Mr. Brad Thompson right here. He and I go way back, like way back to old Crown College days of forever ago where I was wearing skirts to the floor and pantyhose because I had to.
Where all those hoes.
all those, and then we would sneak off into the conservatory and play piano when we were not allowed to be together because we were male and female.
Oh my goodness.
Do you remember that?
I do, and I remember even like getting in trouble like for that. It was like, you're not supposed to be in there. There's supposed to be a third. Oh God, yes. There's supposed to be a third.
It was the Holy Spirit. It's fine.
It was. See, he was there.
Yeah, he was there the whole time.
I'll tell you, so crazy because I was like, I'm not like, this is my friend. Like,
right. We were like super close in college, and I really like we had like the best time.
We did.
I think we had a really good time. Like the semester and a half I was there, then somehow we kind of lost touch over the years. We got to finally reconnect on social media, and it's just been so wonderful. And I'm so excited to have you with me today.
It's gonna be great.
So Brad, tell me, how did it all get started? What is the history of Brad? Where did you, how did you grow up? What did you kind of, all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, so I'm from Indiana, born and raised. My family is here. My mom and my two sisters. I come from a single parent home, so my mom and my dad separated when I was fairly young, and so it was always me, my grandmother, my mom, and my two sisters. My two sisters are two of my best friends. I love my sisters so much. We didn't always start off that way, but now as adults, we are good. As far as my church background, I grew up very conservative, very independent, fundamental Baptist, King James, 1611, fire, hell, and brimstone preaching, saving souls. But it's always, it's so interesting because even though I went to church like that, my mom was not that way. I mean, she always wore skirts and kind of lived very conservatively, but I always describe my mom as this Christian, but this liberal hippie type of person. Like she was like, live life, try drugs, have sex, all that stuff, but like, pray at the end of the day.
Ask God's forgiveness. It's fine.
Yes, God forgives all. And so it was really important for us to be in church, but it was never, in a sense, always forced. My sisters were not necessarily as serious as I was about church, and so there were Sundays that they didn't go, and my mom was just like, you don't have to go. Church is more than just a building.
Right.
So growing up in that church, and for the longest time, church was my safe space, which is kind of oxymoron now because like it turned out not to be my safe space for a long time.
Right.
But I always felt like I could be free and myself, and I had friends there, and I was not the most masculine guy when I was in school growing up. And so I would get teased like constantly about like the way I walked or the way I talked. But church, I was just like Brad, and I like loved that. Like I didn't have to, I was never judged because of the way I walked or talked at that time. But yeah, church was always something that was really, really important to me. I became my church pianist when I was 10 years old. I had only been taking lessons for a few years, and having that sense of community and that sense of like, this is mine was really important and shaped my life. So growing up very conservative, I went to a very conservative Christian college for a year. That's where I met you. And it was such a culture shock at first. Even though I had grown up Baptist, I'd never been around that many Baptists 24/7 all the time. Like it was usually just Sundays and Wednesdays, maybe Saturdays if I went door knocking. But it was a culture shock, like just seeing girls just in dresses and skirts all the time. It was Jesus 24/7. And it was interesting, but it was like a lot.
Yeah. How was it in the dorms? How was it like living in the dorms?
It was interesting. So I was fortunate enough that I was on the campgrounds, and so I lived in the lodge. But because I registered late, I got to actually be upstairs with the seniors. So I had a really, really nice room. Like we had a kitchen and all those stuff. Nice. And so it was nice. A lot of men, and it was a lot of smells.
I'm sure. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
They don't have their mama to clean up after them.
Exactly. And you can tell some of them had no idea what to do. But it was really interesting. Again, that was kind of the first time as well, with me being around a lot of men at that same time. Like a lot of my friends were girls. I only had two sisters. Then the only kind of boy that I really hung out with my cousin. And he turned out to be gay as well. So it was a bunch of feminine energy.
Yes.
But yeah, just going there was a huge like culture shock. And I always remember like one story, and I don't know if you remember this story. We were the week prior to class to start, there's always like this big week of like a revival, or like we meet at the camp and the pastor preaches and we did all these sermons. I remember it was the last day, and the pastor there at the time was just like, hey, group up and we're going to pray together. And I was with one of our mutual friends at that time. And so he prays, and then I pray, and I just pray how I grew up to pray and stuff like that. And like he pulls me aside after we finished, and he was just like, hey, you might need to work on the way you pray. Do you remember that?
I remember this.
And I was just like, well, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, you're just talking to God. Like you have a conversation. That's the only way I've always like been taught. When you pray, you just talk. And he was like, well, there's just a lot of like Jesus. What did I can't remember the specific term because it's been so long. But like you use Jesus.
You said you use Jesus too much, and dear Lord, like somehow you reverenced him like way too many, like his name too many times.
Exactly, and it's like blasphemous. I was just like, okay, and so and that was one of many of me figuring out like, okay, there's something bad about me, there's something wrong about me, so I need to like change like everything. And so growing up conservative, but in this hippie liberal house, I went to the far end of the spectrum, super conservative. Like it was bad. Mm-hmm. And so I went to Crown, and then that summer, I was supposed to tour with the college group because I got into the tour group because a lot of times some of the students will go to different churches and tour that summer, and they get scholarships and stuff like that. It was a really cool opportunity. And so that summer, I had went to like my first like gay party. Mm-hmm. And it was so much fun. I'd never been around like that many gay people. And so it was just like, there was these gay people just living their lives and just dancing and having fun and blah, blah. And I did it a couple times that summer, but I was always trying to be very careful because they would take pictures and I would be like, oh no, like no pictures.
No pictures.
Like, one day I felt very like I was feeling my oats, and I was just like, I'm living up and dancing, and they're snapping pictures, and I jump in the picture and start smiling. And a week after that happened, my pastor was like, hey, can I meet with you about something? I was like, sure. And he was just like, Brad, are you gay? And I was just like, my heart sank. And I was like, no. I was like, I don't know where you got that from or anything like that. And he was like, well, I've been told that there's like a picture like floating around and blah, blah, blah. And this pastor I'd known this pastor all my life. He was very toxic and very homophobic and very misogynistic, typical Baptist male pastor.
Yes.
So he was just like, okay, that's fine. I believe you, whatever. A week later, that Sunday, I get to church, and I get there a little early because I'm the church pianist. And so I was like, I'm there. And it was my last Sunday that I was supposed to be there because I was supposed to drive back to Tennessee and we were going to start the tour. That Sunday, I get there and I just noticed like something was like off. Like the pastor's wife is giving me an evil look. No one's really talking to me on the deacon staff. And I'm just like, that's weird. And I'm not some like, Sunday morning church member. And nothing's wrong with that. But I'm like, getting your own staff here. So I'm like,
exactly.
So I'm getting the songs for the hymns because we did hymns, how Baptist churches. So I'm getting the hymn book. And the pastor was just like, I need to see you in my office right now. I was just like, well, okay. And not thinking of anything of it. I'm just like, okay, if he's meet with me, maybe he's changing a song, whatever. And so I get in the office and he was just like, I'm going to tell you something, and you better not lie to me. And I was like, okay. And he like lifts up the pictures, and it's me with this group, and it's me dancing with a guy. And I just bursted out in tears because I was like, I know I'm caught. And he was like, the names that he called me was absolutely was horrible. Like, I got called a girl, I was called a sodomite, I was called, and I hate that term. And if any of your viewers
me
have
too.
grown up in
I
church,
do too.
You know that term is very detrimental, very harmful, and very horrible.
It makes me sick. It makes me so sick. Like, I'm
and
almost in tears. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And he, that Sunday he was like, I'm sitting you down, and you need to go in front of the church and tell the church like what you did. And so I was sitting in the back, and everyone was coming up to me during handshaking time, like, hey, why aren't you not playing? Blah, blah, is everything okay? And I was just, I didn't know what to say. I was just like, it was so embarrassing. God. Yes. And so after the sermon and after the altar call, he calls me up there in front of the entire church and was like, I just want to let you guys know that even the ones that we have even the most hope for can fall. And he was like, yes, he was like, even those who we have the most hope for can fall. And he was just like, Brad has something to tell you, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be disappointed, and we're going to handle it. And he makes me get in front of the church and tells the church that I've been struggling with my sexuality, and that even though I haven't acted on it, I'm on the verge of acting on it, and I will be sitting down until further notice. And I'd say it's in front of the whole church.
No. Oh my gosh. That is like so heartbreaking. Oh
yes, it was horrible. And even just now, like this feeling of those emotions is just like, I remember just being so embarrassed. I remember hating myself. I remember, oh no.
I know. Oh my gosh.
I legitimately, I wanted to die. I was so embarrassed because these people had known me my whole life, and I felt like I had let them down. Not thinking of letting God down. I was letting these people down.
Right.
And he was like, I want to meet with you on Monday. And I was like, could we do it like today? Because I'm supposed to drive back tonight to Crown. And he was just like, you're not going to Crown. You're not going back to college. And so he was just like, so you need to meet with me Monday morning. So I meet with him Monday morning, and he was like, you need restoration, and you need healing, and you need to be free from this. And so you need to stay here. You're not going back to Crown. And you need to meet with all these pastors. And if we come to agreements that you are on the right path, then you can go back. And it's so crazy. A lot of people thought I left Crown because like I couldn't afford it, or because like I was doing something else. I went to Crown. I left Crown because my pastor threatened to call the college and tell the school that I was dealing with my homosexuality. And the pastor has high authority, and so they can basically say he's not coming back, and they will be like, okay.
Yeah. Nobody would bat an eye. Like everybody would have just been like, yeah, he doesn't deserve to come back, kind of thing. Yeah.
You're doing the right thing.
Gosh. Mm-hmm.
And so I was devastated. And luckily, the only amazing thing is that even though he didn't call, I called Crown. I was like, hey, I'm not coming back. I'm not able to tour. And that was around the time that Crown started putting some of their Bible courses online. This is 2007, so it's still early, technology.
Yes, early
and
technology,
so I was very fortunate that I was able to do a lot of my Bible classes online, and I didn't really fall behind. And so I started meeting with these pastors, and a few weeks after that, my pastor was like, I don't think you're on the right path, so we're going to send you somewhere. And we don't want you to tell your mom. We don't want you to tell anyone. Just tell your parents, just tell your mom that you're staying in my house for a week, 2 weeks, and then that'll be the end of it. And I mean, I wasn't going to deny the pastor because this is the man of God. Right. This is the voice of God. Right. What am I going to do? I'm already, homosexuality and a sodomite, so what I need to do is healing. So he sent me to this place, and it's called, I don't know if I should say the name, but it's an off branch of Focus on the Family.
Yeah.
And I went there, and there were all of these like ex-gays that were there, and all these other like young people around my age trying to be free. And there were moments I was just like, okay, if they've been freed from it, maybe I can be free from it, because I don't want to live like this. And I had prayed for years, like, God, like, make me straight, or like legitimately like kill me. Like, I don't want to be alive anymore. If I can't be straight, I don't want to be alive. So I was there, and the 2 weeks I were there, I was sexually assaulted by the leadership of that place.
Oh my God.
The first time it happened, I went to my room, and I literally called my pastor and was like, hey, this happened, and I don't want to be here anymore, and I don't feel safe here, and blah, blah. And he was like, well, Brad, one or two things either happen. One, either you wanted it to happen and you just like freaked out, or two, there was something about you that said it and it needed to happen. So whatever thing happened, you're still sitting there for the 2 weeks. You need to do it and just accept the program, and we'll figure that rest out later.
Jesus Christ. Oh my gosh. Okay, that just makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, help my soul. Oh
and
my
so
goodness, Brad, I'm so sorry.
It was horrible. It was a low point in my life, and I was just like, and I said, okay. And I stayed there for 2 weeks, and I let them do whatever they wanted to me. And my pastor came for the last day, which we had this whole like ceremony, and like I gave this whole test, like even just thinking back, like how just like I had totally like disconnected from it, because I remember speaking in front of all these people, just how amazing this program is, and how I'm so thankful that I was here, and that these men have been such a help to me, and blah blah blah. And all along, like seeing the guys that were there that were sexually assaulting me, smiling in their faces and hugging them and shaking their hand like nothing had happened. And I got home and I was like, I don't want to be alive anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And my mom and my sister got in a really bad accident a few years before that. And my mom had still had painkillers that she didn't use, because my mom is the type, she's like, I'll just rather feel the pain so that way it can kind of subside. I don't want to be, drug happy. And I took all those pills. It was morphine or something. It was like 500 milligrams. There were 26 pills in there. And I remember, because I counted, I was like, okay. And it's so crazy the way I'm thinking about it. I was like, okay, it has to be more than at least 4 or 5. So I need to take all of them. So I took all of them, and my mom kept vodka under the sink, and I took those 27 pills and I drank the vodka, and I had never drank ever in my life. So it was absolutely disgusting.
Oh my gosh, vodka's awful.
What? I don't want to be here anymore. I was literally at that low point. I was like, I just don't want to be alive any longer. And I fell asleep, and I woke up literally vomiting everywhere. And my mom was like, what's wrong? I was like, I think I just have a stomach bug, and blah, blah. And she took me to my doctor that next day. And he was just like, you don't have the stomach flu. What happened? And I'm so thankful for him, because he, legally, he was supposed to, commit me for 24 to 48 hours. And I literally just exploded everything onto this man that I never talked about really anything personal outside my body.
Right.
And he was just like, you need to, tell someone, you need to talk to someone, and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I'm not going to, write you up or tell anyone or anything, but he recommended that I talk to someone. Did talk to him, because therapy is not of God, and pills are not of God. So you need to pray away and seek counsel.
Yep.
And I eventually left that church and joined another Baptist church that I was in up until the point I came out. Transferred colleges, went to college in California, graduated from there. And that was even more hell. Then I moved to Virginia and started working in a church with a very well-known Baptist pastor, at Crossroads Baptist Church, Kenny Baldwin, and everyone who was in Baptist knew this man. And I was taking over his role as the musician, and I would travel with him. And those 3 years there, I was extremely verbally abused, mentally abused. Nothing I ever did was good enough. The way my hymn arrangements were not as they would like it to be. I remember one specific time, I was playing for one of our conferences, and I was kind of nervous. There was a bunch of people there, and I forgot a key change, and I modulated to the wrong key. And it was a moment of just oh, he's in the wrong key, but I fixed it, and it was fine.
Yeah, it happened.
And after the service, the pastor there was just like, wow, you really messed that up, didn't you? And I was just like, yeah, I just forgot the key. Not thinking much of it, I just forgot the key, but I was like, I fixed it. He was just like, maybe you should practice more. He was like, if you're going to fill my shoes, you should probably practice more.
What?
So
you've never messed up before? What? You've never messed up once before, Mr. Bald?
I'm sure you have.
Right?
Oh
my
God. It was horrible. And just a lot of verbal abuse. And I was telling my mom, the last few weeks I was telling my mom that I'm not happy here anymore. I'm just I feel like I'm being a fraud. And I'm just I can't do this anymore. And my mom literally packed up her car, came and got me, and was like, you're coming home.
Yeah.
And she was like, you don't need to explain it to anyone. You don't need to do it. You're coming home. So I packed up my stuff from Virginia and moved back to Indiana. And was still in that church. And I remember so vividly, like, being in my room, because I just moved into my apartment. And I remember being in my room and was, like, again, praying the same prayer every day. Lord, please make me straight, or, take me out. And there was this realization that just came over me, and just such a piece of just like, what if what you're praying away is not going away because there's nothing to pray away? What if who I created you to be is who you were meant to be this whole time? And I remember just bawling. I'm just like, okay.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
Right. And it was like, maybe it's not a sin. I was just like, but you said this and all of this. And that I took time and just really and I had read the Bible. I mean, I went to Bible college. I have technically a Bible degree. And just really just searching and just like the Bible and just like, trying to figure out who God was for myself and not who people thought God should be for me. And I was like, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. And I came to this conclusion that we always say, especially within the LGBTQ community, that love is love. And that has such a more deeper meaning to me because, I mean, in the Bible, in 1 John, it says God is love.
Right.
And I always say, like, if who I love cannot be wrong because God is love. Satan can't comprehend love. Satan can only comprehend hate and confusion and destruction. So who I love can't be of Satan because Satan can't comprehend love.
Exactly,
and so
yes.
Why is who I love, as long as it's consensual, why is who I love wrong if God's attributes are love?
Yes.
And it was like a light bulb and a piece that just came like over me. And I was like, okay, so if I'm going to do this, I'm going to live my authentic life. I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'm not going to try to please people. And I left the Baptist church and I started dating a guy, and it wasn't public, and I made it public on Facebook. And the floods of messages and emails and calls
bet
that I got. Like, one of my best friends that I went to school with, he was like my best friend. He had lived here. Not Matthew, who lives in California, but he lived here. And we were super, super close. He had lived with me for a few months when he was when his family was going through some stuff. Him and my family were really, really close. He was the godfather of my middle nephew, Hayden. So our families were really, really close. He stopped talking to me for like, I don't know, 2-3 years, like nothing. And not even an explanation of why he's not talking to me. So I just assumed like that was why.
Right.
I got emails and like phone calls, and some of them I knew where their heart was. It was just simple like, hey, I'm sorry you're having to deal with this. I am praying for you. And if you need anything, let me know. And so that was genuine. But there were others who were just like, again, the names that I was called. The pastor from the college that we went to emailed me and was just like, you are a heretic and you are putting a stain on the name of Christ. And we're embarrassed that we had you represent our school and blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God.
The Bible college I went to called me and I didn't answer, left me a voice message saying, don't tell people where you graduated from or anything like that, because we don't want anything to do with you or anything like that. There were so many rumors and things like about me that was just like, were not like true. And it was horrible. But even in that, there was such a like peace that I had, because for the first time in ever, I was like living my authentic life. And it was like, I was happy. I didn't have to hide or pretend to be this perfect Christian or this masculine man and things like that. I could just be me, and I didn't care like what people thought or anything like that. It's such a freeing mindset to have in that, to be like, you know what? I'm good. Thank you for your prayers. Keep praying, but I don't need that specific prayer.
Right.
So it's been a journey to kind of deconstruct and reprogram my mind into what I was raised in this cult, and I call it a cult. And there are good 100%. People I think that are, I think there are good people that are in it. I guess there are people that I am still associates with that are still in the Baptist church, but it is a cult. Like it programs your brain to think this certain way, that the Baptists are the only right ones, that the King James Version is the only translation, that the preacher is the voice and the man of God, which is always so funny thinking about that now, because people talk about the Pope of how he's being the voice and the man of God. I'm just like, but you call yourself
I've said that too. You're so right, though.
So I'm just like, what? There's no difference.
Pedestal. Yes.
Yes. It's crazy. And so I just it took a while. And even now, I'm still on this journey of trying to figure out who God is for me and what my Christianity looks like. I remember when I joined the church that I'm at now, there would be like Sundays I would not go, and I would feel like so bad for not going. Like, oh my goodness, how can you not go to church and blah blah blah. And just with that, just even backtrack, when I left the Baptist church and trying to find a church home that I enjoyed, it was very, very difficult because you know how we were raised, that there shouldn't be any women pastors and that the music should be very conservative and all of these things. And so I remember the first church I went to, and there was a woman who preached, and it was such a good message. But I remember sitting there for the 30 minutes that she preached, being so uncomfortable that this woman was professing God and proclaiming the word of God. Like, it was such a good message, but I felt very uncomfortable in that. I felt very uncomfortable that communion was open for anyone to take. Like, I had never really, really heard that or understood that. I know that if you were baptized in the Baptist church, there were some churches who practiced open communion with that, but like communion was open to everyone and anyone. And that was something that was just like, you can't do that. That's not biblical. Ugh.
I don't know if you were taught this, but I was taught that God would like kill you dead if you were like improperly took communion.
Yes, because of that scripture. If you're unworthy to take the Lord's Supper, like you're not supposed to do it. And I just Yes.
And you're
Cold.
like,
It's
oh my
cold.
God. You're like watching even taking the communion, you're like, they're gonna get struck by lightning on the way.
Right. I remember even like when I would take it, because we wouldn't do it all the time. Like we would only do it whenever, God laid it on my pastor's heart. But I remember like walking up there, like, Lord, if there's anything that I've done, please forgive me before I take your blood and your body in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yes. Yes. I remember we're sitting there praying, going, I don't remember what I did wrong. If I did something wrong, please forgive me. Just in case I missed something. Yes.
A cult. That's what it is.
Yes. It's like I didn't push the cart back to the cart return that one time.
And God's going to strike me down.
Yes.
The one time that I, went off with my mom. That's it. That's
Isn't that so insane?
It is. Oh, it really is. And I wish people like saw it how we saw it, because like if this was any other denomination, any other like Christian sect, we'd be like, this is crazy.
Yes.
That the craziness and just when starting to deconstruct my faith, like I remember like conversations I would have with like Baptists and Christians. That I remember one specific case, there was someone I was out to lunch with when I was back in California, and they were friends, and she was pregnant, and somehow we got on the topic of homosexuality, because that's what Baptists love to talk about all the time.
Of course.
Which makes me think like, is there something that you're hiding? But whatever. And I remember her saying, she was just like, oh, it's just so horrible. She was just like, if I pray that if my child turns up gay, I just pray like I just miscarry.
What?
And I stopped because I was like, I didn't hear her say that. Like, I didn't hear her say that.
No, surely not.
She's like, yeah. She's like, we pray that. She was just like, I don't want him to be, damned to hell or anything like that. So I'd rather, him just go now with his innocence and be in heaven, and then that way we can see each other. But you have a problem with abortion. Like, that's a life. Like, life's...
Right.
What? And I just...
The cognitive dissonance in that. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense. It does not make sense. Like, the total mind warp... For lack of a better term, mind fuck that they have given, that they've done to people. Like, it is still taking me... And I've been out of the Baptist church since 2015. So, almost 8-ish years. And I still, like, have to sometimes, like... watch myself to be like, oh, no, that's not like what you believe. That's how you were taught. So separate that. That's not how you believe. And it was, even with relationships, were very, very hard, because, and I'm sure, within the gay community, there are not a lot of people who are in church, and rightfully so, because the church has hurt so many persons from the LGBTQI community. And it's horrible. So, like, on one hand, I'm just like, look, I get it. Because there were moments I want to leave. I still sometimes want to leave. But relationships were very difficult, because like I had this idea of what the relationship should be, And that's not necessarily the case for everyone, because everyone's not raised like me. And I would talk about like my past and things like that with people, and a lot of people just like would laugh because it's like, there is no way that's real. And I'm just like, yes, it is
oh
real.
My God, it is.
It's real.
It is. Yes, like I can't, like it's very hard for me to find people I can even share anything from my past with, because they're like, it sounds like a freaking Lifetime movie. There's no way this is even possible.
And it's like, yes.
I'm like, but it is.
It is.
I promise.
It is. And
I would not exaggerate this. This is not something I cannot make this up.
I can't. Like, it is real. And like, I've even had like conversations like with people and be like, well, why hasn't this been like exposed or anything like that? I was like, people are trying to expose it, but I'm just like, it's the Baptists keep everything in house. So they don't go out and spread our business.
Yes. And the fact that they're independent, they don't have a governing body
to
regulate. So they can go from one church to the next church to the next church and never communicate back and forth.
Never.
At all.
Never, which is problematic.
It is very problematic.
Because when you get these pastors who are, touching little kids.
Yes.
Or taking their power and authority, to a very damaging position.
Yes.
Like, you just go to another church. And there's a podcast, and I don't know if they still do things, but I follow them on Facebook called the Preacher Boys Podcast.
I love them. Oh my God, I love them.
And the way they have exposed some of these churches and pastors, I'm just like, please keep
that going. Yes.
Because it is problematic. It is damaging.
It's horrendous, because I remember whenever I moved out from my parents' house, like the churches that I went to, because I automatically still went into Independent Fundamental Baptist because that's all I knew. I have been groomed and sexually assaulted by pastors or youth pastors or men in power inside the church.
Wow.
I have never, because this is what makes me angry, is they always push the LGBTQ plus community is trying to proselyte or they're predators to our children. And I'm like, if you look at the statistics, most of these crimes are committed by heterosexual males.
Exactly.
And from my personal experience, they were men in churches.
Men in churches, men in power.
Church. Yes. And I'm just like, then they're sitting here preaching this from the pulpit, trying to be so derogatory and evil towards this community that just want to live.
Just want
to be. They don't care. Like, I have never, since I've gotten out of all of that, and I'm kind of like moving and like opening up my world to talk to so many people. I'm like, I've never experienced anything negative from the LGBTQ plus community ever. No. Not once. I've been loved. I've been accepted. Yeah. They're like, be you, be happy, just don't hurt nobody.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I work with a production company, and we have like a drag queen that we bring into our movies and stuff.
Nice.
I love her. She's fantastic. And so she but she has such a history of so much abuse and being like beat up and like shot at and all of these things just because she's trying to exist. And I'm like, here's these preachers out here going, I'm being martyred because I want the King James Bible, and this gay person tried to serve me at dinner.
And I'm like, you. I don't care.
No. Number one, you're white. 99% of you guys are white men. I'm like, you have the highest power dynamic in this country.
Facts. And you're what?
I'm like, please tell me the last time you were oppressed, and not because your bag ripped when you walked out of Walmart.
Exactly. Well, they're just trying to just mess up our churches and trying to make us marry gay people. Like, that's not even a thing. Like, no. I don't know any person, gay or straight, who would want someone to do their wedding who's not accepting of their wedding.
Exactly.
That's not a thing.
It is
I'm not
going
to pay you my money for you to insult me. What?
What? Exactly. Why? So I do, I have a wedding business where I have a violinist, and so we do weddings, and I'm always like, we're LGBTQ plus community positive, we're friendly. So that way they know they can come. But people will actually say, I'm looking for that is this type of acceptance. They're not out here looking at every single church or every single pastor, or every single officiant. They're not trying to, there's people in every community that tries to make waves, and it's fine. It's just what it is. But for the most part, everybody just wants to be left alone. Just leave them alone.
Just leave me alone.
Yes. Leave us. And what makes me sad is we have lost such an ability to reach a beautiful community.
Oh yeah,
with Christ. Huge, because we have dehumanized, completely dehumanized a group.
We have,
and it makes me sick. It makes me very sick to my stomach.
It does. I've always said, like, I don't think I would, even if I, by some divine intervention, believe that homosexuality is a sin, I would never step foot in the Baptist church ever because of how I was treated. And again, I wasn't some like Sunday morning just Christian. Like, I was on staff at a lot of these churches. I was collecting a check from some of these churches. And I remember so vividly, like the last time I went to the church, the last church that I was in before I came out. And at the time, my family was going there, and they were ready to leave my church with me. I was like, no, if you still believe God is going to want you here, by all means, please stay here. We don't need to be in the same church and blah, blah, blah. I thank you for that. Right. But if this is where God wants you, please stay. And so they were there for a few months, and then they left and then joined the church that I'm at now because they wanted to be in an open and affirming church because they don't want my nephews and nieces to feel like something is bad when I don't believe it's bad. Right. But my oldest nephew was getting baptized that Sunday. And I was like, I'll come because like that's my family. And this church is a church of maybe 800-900 like people. And let's just say let's just say I only know 100 of those people. Mm-hmm. One person spoke to me when I was at that church. And the pastor, who like I've known this man most of my life and was a huge and instrumental for like my Christian development and things like that. And there were two instances that I was just like, I'm done with him. The first instance was when I was there with my nephew when he was getting baptized. He spoke to my mom, my sister, nephew, skipped me, brother-in-law, and then went to the next person. And I was just like, you literally have known me since I was 19 years old. And at that time I was 27. So almost a decade you've known me. So I'm just like, you couldn't even like speak to me? Like no one in that church could like speak to me and say, hey, like none of that. And then the other instance was, this was right when I first came out and I left that church. And I was supposed to play for one of my friends, and she was kind of a former student's wedding. And the wedding was not at the church. It was at a barn. So it wasn't even like messing up their doctrinal like beliefs or anything like that. It was somewhere separate. And he told her the day of the wedding, or the day of the rehearsal, he's like, if he's playing, I'm not going to marry you. And she called me like sobbing and was just like, we don't have to get him to marry us. And it was blah, 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 blah. But to like find like a pastor at that sort of time would have been so difficult. I was just like, listen, I thank you for calling me. It's no big deal. I expected this. It's fine. I can get you another pianist. If you need another pianist, that's totally fine. But I was like, this was like my pastor. He known me for years. And I'm just like, for him to like treat me like I was just some stranger out on the street was just like, it was very like hurtful. And I was just like, even if I did believe it was sin, I would never step foot in the Baptist church. Because if this is what you believe Christ is like, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want anything to do with part of Christ. Because I don't believe God was like that. I mean, when you look throughout the Bible, Jesus didn't call out the quote unquote sinners or anything like that. Jesus called out the church. It was the religious leaders who were the serpents, who were the ones who were needing healness. And Revelation, it was never the tax collectors or the harlots or anything like that. Those were his friends. And so it's always been like, so like, I was like, how did we get from what Jesus taught to like this being back to how the Pharisees and Sadducees treated folks because they wasn't as learned as they were.
Because they deceive themselves into thinking that they are here and then everybody else are the Pharisees and Sadducees over there. You know, they're like, well, you know, we're Baptist, Baptist Briders or King James only, but that church over there, they have drums.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yes.
So they are the Pharisees.
They're wrong.
Or they let their kids celebrate Halloween. Mm-hmm. Those are the Pharisees and the sad. Those are the ones we need to stay away from. And the whole time, I say this over and over again, they did work so hard to protect us from the world. They were the ones we needed to be protected from.
Protected from. Oh my gosh, that's so true. I don't know if you ever got this, especially like talking to people who didn't grow up like us. Like I would always, I had a guy I was kind of talking to at the time, and he was just like, well, do you know like about like Liberty College or Liberty University, or it was another college? I was like, oh yeah. I mean, Baptists, we consider them like liberal. Like they're like on the liberal. He was just like, so they're not even like conservative. She was like, no, they're the liberal, they're the sinners.
Same.
And I had one person was just like, damn, how conservative were you?
I was like, so there's this one. So I was one of my coworkers a couple years ago was like asking me some questions about because she grew up Christian in the area, but not even remotely close to like our type of occultism. And she was like, well, could you listen to Billy Graham? I'm like, oh God, no, he was the devil. We could not listen to Billy Graham. We could not listen to contemporary Christian music.
Oh no.
And her mouth dropped to the floor. She's like, Billy Graham's the devil?
Yes.
I was like, She's like, what kind of world did you grow up in? I'm like, I know. I don't even know how to explain. A cult.
It's so hard to explain.
Literally.
People think we're kidding or we're that crazy. I'm just like, no, this was it. And like there were moments like people were like, why didn't you just leave? I was just like, what do you mean leave? There was never an option.
Yes.
To leave.
No. And that's a sign of a cult though, because they make you so afraid of the outside world.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That you don't want to leave. Like you're petrified of leaving. Like I know I was petrified whenever I started breaking away from the church because my husband had like severe PTSD after he got back from Afghanistan. And he was suicidal and he had to be institutionalized for a while.
Wow.
And people were like, no, you should just pray this away. This is just, you're going to get him drugged up. You're going to get him hooked on this, that, and the other. You need to stop doing this. And that was like the first time my brain went, wait a second.
Yeah.
No, this isn't right. And then, so I started seeking mental health then. He started seeking mental health help then. And like, from that point is where we really started moving away. But I still struggle with stuff in my head.
Yeah.
I like sending 2 of my kids to public school.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully you prayed up.
I'm like, I'm sending my kids to the devil. That's what I'm doing. But let me tell you, like, I went to a Christian school my last 2 years of high school. My husband went to Temple that is associated with Crown, his whole high school.
Oh, wow.
They had sex, drugs, alcohol, bullying, all the same stuff that you would find in a public school, all of it. But it was swept under the rug to keep their image.
Oh,
so
I heard some stories from Temple. My God. Temple Baptist TBA. Let me tell you.
Yes.
Even shocked me. And I went to public school and I was just like,
right?
What?
Right?
I would never.
Right? And I'm just like, he's like, yeah, they used to sneak up into like the choir loft and have sex and they would like go over and do this other like, and I'm just like, y'all bad. But I mean, like, and this is how we approach now with the kids going to public school. I'm like, at least we know to have open conversation about stuff.
Exactly.
We can talk about it. It's not swept under the rug. And so my kids are getting exposed to all of these things that I was never exposed to.
Yeah.
And that is like a trigger for me in itself because I'm like, I don't know how to handle some situations because I'm like, I was so shielded and protected.
Yeah.
You know, and my oldest one is getting ready to have her first dance. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Was bad.
Oh, okay. You're dancing with that person? Oh my gosh. No.
Yes.
There was no dancing.
No. We had to leave room for the Holy Spirit.
Right? Although
I think you and I broke that a couple times.
Health, like, right.
We hugged at least 4 or 5 times.
We did. And I remember even when I was leaving. Okay, back.
Okay, never mind.
I remember, like, I think when my grandmother was in the hospital, my mom was in the hospital, something happened. And I was like super depressed, and you just hugged me, and I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea that I needed that. And like, I remember just like so thankful, but then at the same time, I was like, oh my gosh, we just hugged. I'm probably gonna go to hell because I shouldn't have hugged.
You're gonna get demerits.
Right, I got so many demerits, so that was not, but it was so like, it was needed. And even just within that, I was just like, this can't just be like, we can't just keep living like this. Like, if a friend needed something or needed a hug, whether they're the opposite sex or not, like, aren't we called to be there for them, to bear that burden with them, and to hold them up when they need to be held up, whether there's a girl or a guy, whomever? Like,
yes,
I don't think God cares.
No, and I think what I think happens too is because of the purity culture that's so enmeshed in this cult system. Oh man, I got a whole laundry list of issues I have with purity culture, but
listen,
listen, they over sexualize the male and female relationship that they make it impossible to have platonic relationships between people of the opposite sex.
Yes.
And I remember whenever my husband and I first got married, I was like, you have to stop having all your friends that are girls. Mm-hmm. He grew up with all sisters. He mostly gets along with females the best.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And I was like, no, you got to cut them all off because you can't have any female relationships now that you're married to me. Mm-hmm. And now I'm looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I was an idiot.
Oh,
and so now, but
how we raised.
Is how we were raised. And so now we're like, whatever. I have like the majority of the people on the production team I work on are all men. I'm off driving off into the sunset overnight 2 or 3 nights in a row, sleeping in the car, and he's like, whatever.
Right, okay. Because I know my partner. I know I'm like
exactly.
It has to be a trust thing. And yeah, it's a huge problem with it, and it is over sexualizing. Where I think people always like, well, how are they having sex so early? Because like you're over sexualized. Like people are curious. People want to know, like, is it really as bad? And trust me, if how close we were, if we like wanted to like do something, we could have did something. Like you were a commuter. Like I could have just been like, I'm going to the store. Like there were ways.
Yes.
Not the piano room that literally has a window right there.
Right. Like we were not going to do anything with the matching pianos inside the conservatory.
Literally. What are we
going to do? And like it's just blows my mind, and it's just a control tactic is all it is. It just keeps you subdued so much that you don't have anywhere else. You don't have any room. You don't have room to breathe.
Not at all. And just talking when you were speaking about like mental health, I remember so vividly, and I still even to this day feel so bad about it. We've gotten over it, but there was a friend that was going to Crown, that went to Crown as well, that she had graduated. But she was dealing with a lot of like mental health issues and stuff like that. And she had went to like a doctor, and they had put her like on medication and stuff like that. And at that time, I could not like understand like why she was doing that. Like why you just couldn't like pray to God. Like, and I remember being so like almost to the point like even my own self being kind of verbally abusive, just like, well, you're just not trusting God well enough. If you're just going to trust a doctor and blah blah, not thinking like God put these ideas and thoughts in people to like be able to help other people. But I'm like,
yes.
And I was just like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to take that medication, I can't talk to you anymore. And I just like, and it was months after I came out that I messaged her. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry because like I was dealing with my own junk and my own insecurities and my own mental health and didn't know how to process that. And instead of, seeking out help, I lashed out because I didn't know how to process my own emotions. Yeah. And we're fine now. She's one of my good friends, but I just remember that just feeling like so bad. Like, why is that such a bad thing to seek help? I'm sure God put that in people's hearts to help other people.
Yeah,
you can't just pray everything away.
No, and God gave people the skill to be able to create these medications or to or give people the skills to be good counselors or therapists, so you can help other people. And I don't think obviously now I don't think it's wrong, but back then I was just like mortified if you went to anyone for counseling outside.
Oh my gosh, right? Yes.
Now it's flipped. I am like, I will not go to a pastor for counseling for anything.
Not at all. Not one
Zero. Nope. I
may maybe you to the fullest extent, but I'm not.
Nope. Like if it is anything with my marriage, anything with my mental health, anything with my kids, none of it. Like I appreciate what you do as a pastor. I respect that position. But I'm like, no,
I'm good.
I have my therapist. She gets to hear all my crazy things going on in my head.
That's it.
I remember the last time I ever did pastoral counseling. Oh my God, it was so bad. So my husband and I had kind of come to a point where we separated for a little bit, and we got back together. And part of the stipulation was that we had to go to this pastor for counseling. One, I have an issue with men in authority. I just do.
Same.
It's very triggering for me. Especially ones who wield scripture as their weapons. And so we went into this meeting, and like he listened to us talk and all this, that, and the other. Well, there was one session that Sam couldn't make it, so I went into the session, and I told him I struggle with my self-worth, and it stems from like a lifelong of having like my dad was abusive. There's like a lot of things that happen, And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm worthy of love. And he looks at me, I swear to you, and he says, you're not. He said, you're not worthy of anything good. So anything good you have, you should thank God for.
Stop
I swear
it.
to you. And I just look, my jaw drops. I'm just like, what?
Oh, that makes me so sad. I don't know why.
I know. I was
Why would you?
like,
What? Oh my God, no. Don't let it fall.
No. I'll start with you. Stop it.
Like, why would he say that? You're not worthy?
No.
My Bible tells me that I'm worthy of everything good and everything perfect and everything loving and everything great.
I know. And so after that, I went home. I was like, I'm not going back to him. I refused. I did not go back for another counseling session. Sam and I are great now. We're fine. But we worked through all of that. But I was like, I will never, ever in my life, ever recommend pastoral counseling for anyone. Isn't it crazy?
I don't even have the words. And I've heard crazy things from Baptist pastors. That was like, that even just blew. I didn't think anything could blow my mind. That's what?
Yeah.
How do you tell someone who's coming to you for help that you're not worthy and telling you, hey, I'm struggling with my self-worth. Oh, by the way, you're not worthy of it. So you should just be thankful for whatever you get.
Self-love is selfish. You're not allowed to love yourself. And I'm like, if I'm not taking care of myself, I don't have anything to give to anybody.
Not at all. And this is why so many pastors burnt out or like have these mental breaks and then have to leave.
100%.
Like the pastor the college that I went to when I was there my sophomore year, the pastor was gone for like 4 months because he had a mental break.
Yep. I have known plenty of pastors who have taken their own life because they couldn't take it anymore, or they were struggling with mental health issues and never got the help that they needed. And, and what I hate too is people saying that that's a sin too. Like if people, I'm like, just like, why? Why does everything have to be bad and evil?
It can't, everything can't be. It can't be. There has to be some form of good.
There has to be. And they're like, well, only the goodness comes from God. But I'm like, God created good. And he gives us good things to enjoy. And he gives us people to help us. I mean, I just don't understand why we have to live in this miserable state to be holy.
Just, like, I don't believe that God wants us to live like that. Like, no. I'm sorry. I don't want to live like Job. I don't.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't. He is not that Bible hero I want to model myself after.
Not one bit.
No.
Yes, he got everything back times 10, but that thing that happened before the times 10 seems dreadful.
That's pretty rough.
And I don't believe God wants us to live like this. I don't think God cares if we have fun and enjoy our lives. I think we put so much focus on holiness that we miss holiness. I think we put so much
100%.
perfection on being Christians where I'm just like, I don't think God calls us to be perfect. I don't think God, because we can't be. If we're holding on to that mentality that all have sinned and all come short and all are not worthy, then God already knows I can't be perfect. So why am I striving to be perfect? I can just only be my 50 stuff. I can only treat people with love and respect and try to be the best version of myself I can possibly be. I think that's what God all calls us to be. I mean, the Bible tells us that you have all these commandments, but only this commandment I give you, that you love God and love people.
Yes, love your neighbor as yourself. And you know what we don't do? We Baptists especially do not love their neighbor as themselves. They love their neighbor as long as they look like them, talk like them, act like them, and walk that straight line.
And the moment you vary off from it,
Yep. And that's just, and I told somebody one time, I was like, I have found more love and compassion in the evil world than I have ever found in the church, ever in my life.
I hate that because the church was like, I mean, our church was everything to us. Our community was everything to us. And I felt more, like you said, more loved, more accepted, more free when I came out and had to be in the world than I ever felt that I was in the church when I was supposed to feel the love of God, who is this perfect love and this most amazing and pure love. And I didn't feel that from his people at all. And when I did want to leave the church, I never wanted to leave the church because of God, because I knew God was for me. I didn't want to deal with his people. Like for lack of a better term, hated everything Christian, hated every person Christian. I didn't want to deal with it. And even now, I'm still struggling these years later, even when I'm in church and I start to get close to people in the church, there's the instant let that wall back in, because I know how people can get when you let them down or you fall or anything like that. And I just don't want to like go through that. So how close I was to people when I grew up, and those churches are not necessarily the same now. And I hate that the Baptist world took that away from me, because like I love people. I love interacting with people. And like there are moments like there was a few weeks that there was an outing for the worship team, and I was just like, no, I'll see you guys next time. And I wanted to go, but that fear of just even remotely being close to someone is just like,
I can relate to that so much. Like you're like literally speaking my heart right now, because I deal with the same thing.
It's
because
hard.
It is hard. I have a much easier time getting close to people who are atheist, agnostic. You know, Wiccan. I don't know, like whatever religion you want to, like outside of Christianity, because of the amount of hurt. And it's not that I'm like holding grudges or I'm like I'm not bitter anymore. Like I struggled with bitterness for a while, but you know, honestly, now that I'm in my authentic self, I'm like so at peace. Like I love that I don't have to hide anything about myself anymore. It's like I'm just me. This is who I am. If people don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to like it who I am. It's fine.
And I think that's why I like connected with you so quickly. Like I just remember when we first met, of just like being on the bus ride with that mutual friend, and just I remember like I don't even remember what the conversation was. We were just talking about just a bunch of like random things, and like I remember just like, oh, this girl is like, she is the real deal. And I had no idea who you were at that time, but just the conversations that we had, I was just like, this girl is on to something. I don't know what she's on.
I felt that same way about you. Like we just had this connection that you know, I think our spirits bear witness, if you want to use Bible terms, or or kindred spirits of some sorts. You know, I think, and I just felt that same connection with you too. Like that bus ride to that Wonderworks, like upside down house. Remember whenever we went and did that? Oh my God, I had the ugliest short hair that year. It was so bad.
Come on, short hair, I live for it.
It was so bad though.
Listen. Oh. Gosh.
Remember the Sadie Hawkins dance, like the Sadie Hawkins thing that we did? And like I literally just hang out with you and like our two other male friends, and like, people were always like, why is she with them?
Why
like they
always boys.
Yes, but I grew up with brothers and I had male cousins, and like I just was comfortable with men, but boy, like that's just where I fit. That's
she's a person, so she can hang out with whoever she wants to. Like, I know that crazy for a girl today, but you know.
I remember the summer camp they did, like Victory Summer Camp, before the semester began. And like they had like the water slide open on one side of the campground, and like they had the other
oh my gosh, yes.
And so I was hanging out with so you guys had to switch. So I was hanging out with the guys because that's just what I did, because that's what I was used to, because I just don't relate to women very well. I just don't. And so I remember it was time to go do the water slide, and I'm like in a full dress and a t-shirt because it's what we had to wear. And they're like, you still have to go and be with the girls, because you know it's inappropriate to be together. And I'm like, I just want to swim with my friends.
I just want to swim. I don't want anybody's voice. And that was the same thing for me. Like I was just like, I never like was raised like that, because again, I have sisters, and like there were a bunch of like girls in my home, and so like I was never like, for me I was always around the opposite sex, and so it was never anything for me to be around mostly girls, and so like that whole notion like they couldn't be together was very like weird, because I wasn't used to that. I was like, if people want to do something, they're gonna find a way to do it, whether you
it does not matter how many regulations you put on someone. If they want to do something, they're gonna do it. You know, it's like marijuana.
Listen,
you know, make myself happy there.
Very happy. I love it.
That's a story for another time.
Right, okay. Oh my God. Love it.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are coming up on an hour, Brad. I'm going to wrap this up. And I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. This is so great.
Oh man, you're so inspiring. And I'm so excited that you're in your authentic self and you're just happy.
Same.
So happy.
Same. So do you. And it's so great to just like catch up with you and just talk and just, reconnect about old times and new times. And it's exciting to see where we are in this phase of life. It's amazing.
It is beautiful. I love it. And so everybody, thank you so much for listening today. If you have your own story you would like to share, shoot me an email or follow the instructions in the description box below. Until next time, everyone has a story. What's yours?